They whispered to her, "You can't withstand the storm." She whispered back, "I am the storm." And storm she is. Mahek Lokhandwala, my guest today, also popularly known as the Indian carnivore. I came across one of her podcast interviews and couldn't help thinking that apart from her immense knowledge on food and fitness, she certainly has grit, determination, and conviction in what she does. Given my own interest in the subject, I started to follow her, send her messages and questions, and she very generously and promptly answered. We got connected, and today I believe it's the universe that conspired it all. From the other side, we are in conversation with Mahek Lokhandwala. Welcome, Mahek.
Thank you so much. That was such a eye-teary, warm welcome. Thank you.
I truly mean it. And what are the chances? I was coming to Bombay for 2 days. I reached out. I said, Mahek, can we have a conversation? And you graciously accepted. So thank you.
No problem. You're very welcome. I think every chance and every opportunity that I get to meet people, be it in the field of nutrition or otherwise in life, I just feel that there's so much to learn from them.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to miss any of those chances.
And we are so glad that that's how you feel, because this really makes a difference to a lot of those who are hopefully listening to us today.
Absolutely.
Mahek, one of the things that I have felt very strongly about is conformity. Our social and cultural conditioning promotes and almost applauds conformity.
Yes.
I'm hoping from the other side, we are able to have conversations that burst myths and challenge conventional wisdom. I know that you do this both in your personal and professional life. You unabashedly speak your mind because your purpose is so clearly defined in transforming lives. I'm curious, Mahek, to trace back to your childhood days, where perhaps the roots of your passion and personality started to take shape. Would you tell us a little bit about your cultural, religious influences that perhaps has a bearing on who you are today?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that's where it all starts from, because I come from born and brought up in a Gujarati family. Mm-hmm. My father was a Gujarati, my mom's a Muslim, and they had a love marriage.
Oh, nice.
So, of course, that's bringing two cultures together in a time where intercaste was not accepted, where love marriages was a very big deal, actually.
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it?
So for them to do that was, I think, a very big thing. We've only grown up seeing the cultural side of Hinduism specifically. I spent a very less amount of time at my Nani's house, where food was completely different, culture was completely different. So not so for my sister, but more for me, I have seen both the worlds. Like on the weekends, I would be at my Nani's house, and on the whole week, I would be in my Dadi's house. So food was completely two different worlds. And
yes,
we were, as kids, we didn't really, I wouldn't say we were confused, but yes, we just took everything that came along, because obviously our parents have been teaching us that what is right, what is wrong. And that's exactly what I see today in today's kids also. Whatever we as parents have been teaching them in terms of culture, food, nutrition, they've just been taking that. Where is the questioning? Nobody is questioning. And I wish at that point we had so much knowledge that we could question what we eat, what we do, why things happen. But as kids, I guess we just, played around and we just grew up. So yeah, my grandmother, my Nani's side was very different, more of a non-vegetarian, kitchen. My Dadi's side was a complete vegetarian, and it so used to happen whenever we would come back on a weekend from my Nani's house. My Dadi would tell us at the door, okay, I hope you guys have had a good shower and you guys eat non-veg and you should be very clean before you enter the house and things like that. So we used to take it as fun at that time. But now that I realize where this imbibement of, these beliefs have come from. So this is something I'm focusing right now in my practice, not to change people's belief systems, but at least to make them aware of how things have evolved and we as humans need to evolve. I mean, you can keep your beliefs and your faith. There's nothing wrong with that. But just don't let it come before your health.
So that's amazing then, Mahek, because if conformity was something that was handed down to you, then I want to take back to the year of 2018.
Right.
When you went in for your routine blood work.
Yes.
You were also somebody who, like most people, wanted to be healthy.
Yes.
So you were going to the gym. Your diet was perhaps not all there, but you were hoping to work on all of those aspects. Right. The blood work that you do, the markers generally seem all right, except one, which is cholesterol, right? And that's where your journey begins. And why this is important is because, Mahek, conformity, and then you are at this point where you are told by the doctor?
Yes. The year 2018, the biggest turning point in my life. And I hope I don't get very emotional on this, because when I did a previous podcast on the same topic, it really burst me out.
So please do. But and this is important because these are incredible stories and these are real stories that we all want to hear.
Yes. 2018. Like a normal young girl going to the gym, workout, thinking I'm eating right. And also I always lived with this misconception that if I eat something, I can always burn it out, right? And the other way around, that if I have exercised, now I have the right to eat what I want, or I can treat myself. So of course years passed by and I started gaining the weight. 2018, I remember it was the month of March, and we at our mosque usually have a yearly checkup, a routine checkup where they give it to us at a discounted price. So me and my husband, we enrolled for that, and the checkup was at a very famous hospital in Mumbai. I do not want to name it. And then, like you said, all my markers were fantastic. It was just, I just take you back a little before that month of March. Sure. It was in September 2017 where I started to follow intermittent fasting. As you know how it is when you're in the gym, you meet friends and you meet colleagues and they're like, oh, let's try this and let's try that. So there was this friend of mine and she said, why don't you try intermittent fasting? And I said, what is that? She says, well, you don't eat for a certain number of hours and then you break your fast and you eat. So I said, okay, what's that going to help for? She says, it's going to help you for weight loss. And I was very excited because I was on this journey of coming down from a size L to at least an M.
This must have sounded like some magic pill.
It was some magic. 3 months passed by. December, I saw very good results. Come March, I said, okay, now it's been 6 months. And since I've been doing this so well, why not get a markers check? And that's when I went for this routine checkup. And yes, all my markers were fantastic. There was just one marker in the cholesterol lipids which said high LDL, right? So LDL is something that the entire globe fears, and I really do not know why. So anyways, I did the marker. The marker came out to be 163 and the cutoff range was 150, barely a slight high on that. And the first thing when they handed the reports to me, they said, well, go see the cardiologist. I headed myself to the cardiologist office and we sat and he looked at my report and he asked me what I do. And I told him that I do intermittent fasting because I thought I was doing everything just on the T. And he started saying, oh, that's really bad. Look at what you've done to your cholesterol. And I said, well, whatever it is, it's right there in front of you. Now you tell me, what am I supposed to do? He's like, okay, I'm going to hand you over this medication. It is a cholesterol lowering drug. And I said, okay. He said, it's 5 mg. You have to take this every single day for the rest of your life. Yes. That was the turning point. To take something for the rest of your life, which means I'm unwell. And I'm going to be unwell for the rest of my life.
And this is a person who was working, thinking that you're doing everything that you need to be doing to get healthier.
Yes.
And then this is
I
what
remember when the doctor told me, oh, I think you don't work out. My husband, he actually got up from his seat and told the doctor, the amount my wife works out, I don't think any of your patients work out.
Good on him.
So he was very upset because things were just contradicting to what we were doing.
Right.
And then when he put me on the statin, I came home and, with that stress, you're already in so much of stress. Now
Absolutely.
you don't know what to do. Even second and third opinions are saying the same thing. And then the next thing he said was, come back to me and go for a stress test. We went back the next day. Now, as a human, psychologically and physiologically, I am going to be stressed. The next thing he does is he puts me on a stress test.
And of course, you're stressed.
And of course, I'm very stressed. So my reports are all in red. And he says, look, I told you your arteries are clogged. And I said, okay, I still don't follow. What am I supposed to do next? He said, well, continue the medication and we're going to get you an angio done. Then I asked him, what exactly is that? And he said, we're going to pass a dye through your arteries to see if there is a blockage. Now that seemingly gave me goosebumps because that is something getting into me.
Invasive, yeah.
Invasive, and I don't know what's going to happen after that, right? I think it'll be my star moment, wishing moment. I went to the hospital to get a bed for the angio, and the receptionist said, ma'am, we don't have a bed until a week. And I said, okay, no problem. Let me get back. I remember moving aside from the reception and I told my husband, and he just told me one thing. Let's wait. Let's wait. It's not happening. Because me and my husband, we have this thing amongst us. When something doesn't click, we get a feeling.
This is so nice as well, because I often feel that we hear our instincts, but we don't listen to it.
Yes, we hear it.
And this is important, right?
Absolutely. So I always tell people, your gut is always right. Always.
Absolutely.
So I remember we did this and we came back home, and it was almost a week or so passed off and we never went back to the hospital. I said, you know what, let me just be on this statin. Let's see what happens and then we can take a call.
So you start the medication.
I started the medication.
And this is medication for life.
This is medication for life, a 5 mg. But anyways, I started the medication in March, April, May, June, July. And July onwards, I started to feel very different about myself. Yeah, I started to gain weight, seemingly thinking that, okay, I'm just eating the same thing, so that's probably,
the body's gotten used to it.
And I still remember I would wake up for the gym, I would get ready, and I would go back to sleep.
Oh dear God.
Okay. I'll add one more thing here. I have, at that point, used to run a jewelry store. I'm a professional jewelry designer, so I used to run a retail store. And I remember clients would come to me and take a quote from me on my pieces and things like that. And within 5 to 10 minutes, I would forget what I have quoted them.
So you were foggy.
I was like brain fog, like as if there was like this, this sheath in front of me, like a fog. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 12 years. How can I not remember what I just told the client? But this is very weird. That was the first thing I saw. The second thing I noticed was whenever I would make customized pieces, my eyes would get teary, they would get blur. I was not able to concentrate on finishing one entire custom-made piece, which earlier I could do it in 5 to 7 minutes. The next thing which I saw was I felt I was getting my periods every day. It was PMSing, like those moods and that irritability. I could just snap at my daughter. I used to beat my daughter up in anger. I've done that. And I'm openly saying this on camera today is because I think there are a lot of women who are going through this. So, I've done it.
You are extremely brave, and thank you for doing this, because this clearly is important for us to discuss it and hopefully send this message out. So if I can just take a little break here to intervene and tell you that this had to be serendipity, right? I go in for my marker checkup. So I go in for my blood work.
Yes.
And I do this routinely every year around my birthday. So I'm turning 52 and I said, let me go and get all my blood work done.
Lovely.
To me, much like how you've described it, Mahek, it's a report card that I have really worked really hard on the whole year through.
Yes.
So I obviously take it very personally,
yes.
right? And while all my markers, like yours, seemingly were fine, the one marker that was yet again identified was cholesterol.
Yes.
And just like your story, the LDL was considered high. I went to the cardiologist. He turned around and said, time you consider statin. This is something you've got to do for the rest of your life. He asked me, do I drink? I said, no. Do you smoke? I said, no. How often do you exercise? 6 days a week. What kind of food do you eat? More proteins.
Yes.
I do strength training, lot of water. So he says, okay, this all seems fine. Consider statin. The word statin rang a bell, which is when I texted you and I said, this is what I've been told. The voice message that you sent me that day. And here was again a situation where I was trying to combat in my head, thinking that if I've done so well on so many other parameters and put in the effort, then this shouldn't have happened.
Yes.
And clearly the cardiologist is now directing me to a lifelong drug. Just want to mention a drug which has a 30 billion market.
Yes.
And the voice message that I got from you was warm, empathetic, and I left the hospital with a spring in my feet.
Yes.
And who'd think that would be possible? Because the words that kept ringing in my head is, don't take statin. I promise you, you will be fine. Don't take statin. And I did just that, which is I kept my faith in what I'm doing, because from what I read, from what I hear, from what I'm learning, I know this is the right path.
Yes, yes, indeed is. We have misunderstood a molecule which is so essential.
Cholesterol.
Cholesterol.
And 25% of our brain is cholesterol.
Well, I'd say more than that.
Really?
It's 80.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, that's what I really want to make this point here is the cholesterol that we keep seeing on our reports is not from dietary cholesterol.
Right.
I have said this repeatedly, and it's only because I have studied this chapter so much in detail now.
Yes.
And I really want to go back sometimes and thank the doctor for doing what he did, because sometimes wrong things come into your life as
for a
lesson.
very good reason.
Very good reason.
Yes.
So he putting me on that medication, me going through all of this trouble and this stress. And let me add to this, with that statin, I gained 20 kilos.
Dear God.
20 kgs. My clothes went from a size small to a double XL. Yeah, these were the side effects of the drug that I was taking, obviously because there was no cholesterol reaching the brain, and hence the brain was always sensing starvation.
Fogginess in the head, the eyes being impaired, being irritable, all the effects of statin.
Yes. Severe hair fall was another thing that I was
And of
facing.
course the weight that you put
The
on.
weight, I was just grounding it up. There was no way it was coming down in any way.
And
Even the intermittent fasting at that point
did not
failed.
work. Yes, because
I
you had
was
too
doing
many things
too many
that were going
There
against.
was no way I was doing intermittent fasting, because when you're on this kind of a drug, all you want to eat is sugar and carbs. So that's all I was doing, eating and sleeping, eating and sleeping.
And the intervention happened with your gym instructor.
Yes, the intervention happened when I remember going back to the gym one fine day, gaining courage, and I went back, and my senior coach asked me, where have you been? And you've been so disciplined and why have you gained all this weight and what's going on? And I said, sir, you know what? I've been told to take this medication, which I am to take lifelong. He said, okay. And I remember he made me sit next to him on a treadmill. We sat there and he said, okay, what is the drug that you're taking? And I did not give him the name. I just said statin. And he said, okay, I'm going to give you 9 symptoms. And you're going to just tick mark and tell me if all of these things are happening in your life. And exactly there, we were sitting there with folded feet, I remember. And he gave me those 9 symptoms and I said, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, to everything. The last sentence he said was, stop this drug or you will die. And I said, no, sir. The doctor said, if I stop this drug, I will die.
And it's a white coat wisdom that you never challenge. Why would you, right?
Why
Because
would
that's
you?
what we've
what
been
I'm
taught.
saying. Yes, we've all been taught like this.
Yeah.
For us, doctor is God. Although I never want to despise the fact that yes, doctors do their best.
Absolutely.
They're doing, they've taken an oath. So yes, they're doing their best to get the best out of people's
And
lives.
I think what's important here, Mahek, is for us to also emphasize the fact that while we are not trying to discredit doctors, all we are also saying is that we need to keep ourselves abreast with information. And today's time and day, everything is at your fingertips. I particularly believe that not making a healthy choice is a choice that you're exercising today.
Yes.
Because of the information that surrounds us, how can you not know what's right?
Exactly. This is what I tell even my clients who are on my program now that are with me. I tell them, question everything that you are being asked to put in your mouth, whether it's me telling you to put it, or it's your doctor, or it's somebody else. Don't blindly follow, because I blindly followed and I landed up here.
Right.
So whoever it is, if somebody is asking you to do something, please question it, because you have a right for that information.
Right. So if we can go back again, Mahek, to your report and to my report, and I have to say that the analogy with which you explained to me LDL was so idiot-proof that I was like, I've got this. I get this, because otherwise, for us as lay people, we can easily get lost in terminologies, right? And it may sound very daunting that, oh dear God, now, this seems too complicated.
Yes.
Would you tell us what it is that, and how it is that you explain LDL?
LDL, yes. So, this is one of my seniors who taught me this, and he said, Mahek, whenever you're teaching something to somebody, you have to understand from the perspective of a 5-year-old.
And that's fantastic advice.
Fantastic. He said, if you can explain a certain terminology to a 5-year-old, trust me, you've done the job.
Sure. And you have.
So I'm glad. So how I learned about LDL was, of course, there are a lot of factors that incorporate making up your cholesterol. That's your triglycerides, your HDL, which is known to be as a good cholesterol, your LDL, which is to be called as a bad cholesterol.
Presumably.
Which in my case, which in my knowledge or in my perception is not at all a bad cholesterol.
And it is not a bad cholesterol, because it is basically a transport system.
It's a transport system. So like how I explain this to people is, think of your triglycerides as being passengers that are waiting at a bus station.
Right.
Okay. These are coming from the foods that you're eating, and then they're getting stored as fats, which your cells are going to need in future.
Absolutely.
Now there's got to be somebody who has to carry these passengers around and drop them off at every station that requires them. The only one that is doing this is your LDL. Yeah, so transportation is done by LDL from your cells to your other cells where they are required. HDL brings back all those leftover triglycerides to your liver. Right? So in my perception, both are doing an equally good job.
Right.
The problem comes when LDL becomes oxidized. That is when it gets into the pattern B. The smaller particles, these are the ones that enter your arteries. And what we need to fear or we need to take care of is the particle B, LDL.
Right.
Right? These are coming from use of seed oils, sugars. Processed foods, fructose. A lot of the stuff that we should not be eating.
And that are perhaps conceived as being healthy. Because fruits are healthy.
Yes.
So it's fructose sugar.
Yes, absolutely. Non-alcoholic fatty liver is something that I see because of tons of fructose in various forms. So when people tell me, I'm sorry, we're drifting off the topic a little bit, but I will come back to LDL. But fructose is coming from not just fruit sugar, but also from other processed forms of sugar that we're taking in from packaged foods. So when people tell me, fruits, our ancestors all ate fruits and they were so healthy and they were fine. It's absolutely, because they'd go hunting wild in the wilds for hours to get one fruit from a tree.
Correct.
You and me order fruits on Swiggy and Zomato today, right? So that's about fruit. Coming back to the LDL and the transportation it does. So that's the thing. LDL is the transporter or the bus which is carrying these triglycerides to every station. Now, because you're going to see so much of transportation happening, LDL is going to be seen more often on the reports.
Which is where the high comes from.
Yes, the H comes from.
So what we're alluding to is the fact that the LDL reading coming high on your report is actually a good thing.
It's a very good thing in a certain scenario. And I would like to state that scenario here. It's only when your triglycerides to HDL ratio is below 1.
Right.
So whenever you see your LDLs high on a report, please do not panic. Get a triglyceride number, divide it with your HDL, see the ratio. If it's below 1, it means you are carrying pattern A LDL, which is doing a good job of making sure those passengers, those triglycerides are getting transported from the cell to all the other stations. Right. The problem is when you have high triglycerides, low HDLs, and high LDLs. So there's a little trick that you need to understand here about how to read LDL.
Wonderful. So I think this largely covers the conversation on cholesterol. And I know we can keep going on and it'll get a bit technical and I don't want to lose anybody. Yes. But because we talked about triglycerides, it's important that we further this to one of the biggest culprits that I see today, which is sugar. Sugar, seed oils is the amalgamation of a disaster together. And this is what is soaring our triglycerides. So whenever I have vegetarian clients, for example, and they say, oh, we've got very high cholesterols and meat is not good and eggs are not good. And I always question them one thing. You are a vegetarian. You shouldn't have high cholesterol.
Why should you have cancer, diabetes, high cholesterol? Why? If you don't eat any of these foods that raise your cholesterol or that give you diabetes. And the only common thing I see in all their plates is sugar. Sugar, not only in white form, in every form.
So if I can spend just a second longer here, we are not referring to white sugar that you put in your tea. We are saying sugar, which is jaggery,
yes,
fructose, processed foods,
yes,
carbs.
Absolutely. Refined carbs, refined flours, processed food, junk.
Right. Because you see, the body is rather simplistic.
It's very simple.
The body is not saying, oh, because I have got white sugar coming, I need to be careful.
Exactly.
It doesn't care because whatever that you're eating from these foods that we've mentioned, the minute it goes down here, it's converted to sugar.
Period.
Simple?
Very simple. Simply put, if I would say. Today we are capital in diabetes.
India is
a capital in diabetes, and I'm sure in the next 10-15 years we're going to be topping the world in a few more thousands of numbers.
That's scary.
Very scary. And more that I see now is it's a very early onset with children. Young kids as young as 10 to 12-year-olds are on my program, and I tell them what is going on, and I ask the parents, what are you feeding these children?
I want to quickly address one other aspect, which is that of, because you mentioned vegetarians, and I have to, and this is a confession that I want to make, that up until 8 months ago, in my own wisdom that I was thinking that I've got the health factor in my head, so I make decisions based on it, that vegetables are good, red meat isn't very good, white meat is better than red meat, so stick to that, right? And the rest of the things, no drinking, no smoking, hydrating, no sugars. So I've got it. I'm getting older. I've started strength training for over 2 years now. I need to build muscle. And what I'm struggling with is that it's seemingly not shifting, right? And now, 8 months hence, what I have clearly started to do is add more protein. And when we talk about protein, we've got to understand that we need those amino acids. And the essential amino acids, the best source is animal protein.
Absolutely.
Which is when I went back and I said, when I have discomfort that I'm talking about when I'm consuming meat, is this the discomfort in my head? Or is it something that I'm actually feeling? The answer was rather clear. The proof, as we say, is in the pudding. And again, with all pun intended here, I started on meat. I feel more energetic.
Yes.
I feel more stronger. And I think it is important when we talk about conditionings that unless, and this is something that I read and I thought it was so simply but yet beautifully put, that discomfort is at the precipice of change. It's going to be uncomfortable when you cross that river of change. But if that needs to happen, you've got to accept that the comfortable position needs to be left. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, we're only going to end up with the same results. For results to differ, we've got to use a different path, different mechanism. So for those, Mahek, who are listening and who, much like me, would have sat there and said, and I understand culturally, religiously, if you make a choice of being vegetarian, that's one thing. But yet again, our endeavor here today is to put the information out. We are not here to change the world, but we are here to share. And hopefully, even the one person sitting there today and listening to us, we perhaps leave them with this thought, if not completely change them. We also understand that there is an aspect of bio-individuality, which means that what works for me doesn't necessarily need to work for somebody else. But there are certain facts that can't be denied because this is simple science.
Absolutely.
Amino acids are important for your body. The best source of that is your animal protein.
Absolutely.
So to somebody who's sitting on the fence thinking, oh, I'm not too sure if I can do the non-vegetarian thing, what would you tell them?
Yes, and I face many such people every single day.
I'm sure.
70% of India is vegetarian. To me, a simple advice to a vegetarian who may say that, okay, because of whatever belief systems or their faith or the conditioning of so many years of eating a certain way will not change, I would say, okay, the best you could do is at least cut off the sugars in whatever forms you can. Cut the refined carbs, sleep well, try to improve on your protein, as you said. Cook your protein in healthy fats. Don't fear the fats. Saturated fats. We're always connecting saturated fats with high LDLs.
Yeah.
And that's another problem there. We don't eat butter, we don't eat ghee. These are traditions that our ancestors have given us. And we are burying them for what? Just to eat these modern foods which are processed. So I just tell them very simple, if you cannot eat eggs, you cannot eat red meat, no problem. Okay, fair enough. Understand that your body is going to deal with that vegetarian meal the way it's supposed to deal. It doesn't care, like you said, about your beliefs. It doesn't care about which day you are fasting. It doesn't care about which god you are trying to please. It only cares about keeping you alive. So remember, it's fighting every single day to make sure whatever you are eating, vegetarian or non-vegetarian, it's making sure it is using or absorbing what it can at its best ability. Now, you and me don't know that. We just think, oh, we are eating salads or we are eating, veg food, so it's all very healthy. But how much of it is our body actually absorbing? And then I have these health markers which come up with high cholesterols and high uric acids. A lot of vegetarians I'm seeing with high uric acid coming in all from the fruits and the fructose.
So
and only one thing, one macro that is being blamed for it is protein.
Right. So I think here again it's very, very important, and we can't leave this subject undiscussed without putting at the forefront carbohydrates versus protein, right? Because if you look at the Indian meal, if you look at the vegetarian meal, it skews heavily to carbohydrates.
Absolutely.
So would you explain to us simply what carbs do when they enter our body, and how does that impact on the most important question that you're asked, how can I lose the weight, Mahek?
Yes. So carbohydrates convert, in simple words, convert to sugar, glucose in the body language. Yeah. Your body does need glucose. Yes, it is essential for certain cells, like your red blood cells. They will use the glucose. Although your other cells will also use it, but it's a non-essential, which simply means your body knows how to make its own glucose. Right. So something that you already know how to make, you don't want to buy it from outside, or you don't want to get it from outside. Now that is...
But this is not the case in the way of amino acids.
Absolutely not. It's called as an essential amino acid. So even if you Google it, protein, it will tell you essential amino acids because your body cannot make it. You have to take it from food,
right,
which is bioavailable for your body.
Sure.
Now that's a very important thing. Whatever we are eating, we have to make sure it's bioavailable for our body.
And bioavailable means?
Your cells can absorb it. Yeah, so that is a very important point. Coming back to carbs, yes, whenever we eat carbs or any forms of sugar, Our body always wants to stay in a state of homeostasis, which means it wants to always make sure it's in a state where your body's temperature is balanced, its hormones are balanced. The one hormone which kind of helps into doing that is insulin.
Right.
Insulin is secreted by your pancreas every time a carbohydrate touches your tongue. Now, I will rephrase this: every time a carb or a protein touches your tongue, because I don't want people misunderstanding this part.
Yes.
Carbs raise your blood sugars, and hence insulin will be released so that the sugars can be transported into a cell and your blood glucose can come in a normal range.
Right.
Because that's that's always a primary goal of your body, to make sure your blood sugar is in normal range. Coming to protein, yes, your blood sugar will rise, not as much as when it's with carbs. Now, what happens with a vegetarian meal or a meal in India where a standard plate is almost 700 to 800 grams
of carbs?
Where is the protein? Sitting there in one little corner, in one little bowl. So this constant eating of carbohydrates, which means constant release of insulin from your pancreas.
So this is important, because when you're eating a certain type of food, your insulin shoots up.
Yes.
But insulin also shoots up every time you're putting your food in the mouth.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about what you eat, but it is how many often
times
you eat.
The frequency of eating is very important. So whenever you're eating carbs, and I'll come to this, why do people say eating every 2 hour timely is very important for whatever, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. When you drive a car, you get to a gas station, you fill it full tank, and then you will drive the car from point A to point B. Now, you are not right in your head to keep stopping at every gas station and refueling. Do you do that? We don't. But what do we do when we eat carbs? We're eating carbs, blood sugar spikes. Now, insulin has to be released. That insulin is going to transport that sugar into the cell. What was the aim of eating a meal? The aim of eating a meal was to transport that to all the cells so they could use it at that point. Whenever this food reaches a cell and it tells the cell, okay, I'm here, do you need me? And the cell says, oh, you're sugar. I don't need you because I know how to make sugar.
Make it myself, yeah.
Let me transport you into the cell. I don't need you. What happens to that cell? It's still hungry. It's not got what it wants. So what happens? Your blood sugar will rise. Because insulin has shuttled it into a cell, blood sugar has come back down. And now you're hungry again. So it's like, I give this another analogy of a small baby, newborn, who's crying. A child only cries when he's or she is hungry for milk.
Right.
The moment you give the child milk, the child will keep shut for a few hours. That is exactly your cell. You constantly trying to feed it every 2 hours is your cells telling you
what you're eating isn't enough.
Is not right.
Yes.
It's not the right quality. India and most countries are now only focusing on the psychotherapy, calorie in versus calorie out. We are not a mathematical system. We are working on biology, on hormones. What you eat will release that particular hormone, will then take it further on from there. Now, this is not the case when you eat protein and fats. Because when the same cycle happens, let's say you eat eggs and maybe an avocado, this food gets into your body, your cells are asked, do you need me? Yes, I need you because I don't know how to make you. Let me use it. Does this go into storage? No. So it just means you've given the body what that child needs, the milk. And that is how when you practice eating more protein, more fats, you can stay full for a longer period of time for a couple of reasons. Protein takes much longer to digest, so it has a very high thermic effect. Also, when you're eating protein, to digest protein, there's a lot of calories being burned by your body.
And you're fuller longer.
And that's how you're losing the weight. So how do you lose the weight in short? Cut the carbs, so your insulin lowers. Whenever your insulin is low, your body will open up the fat cells and release the stored fat. That is exactly what we want.
Right.
You want to use what you have stored.
In effect, our bodies should be fat-burning machines.
Absolutely,
And
not
the
sugar burning.
and the only way that's possible when your insulin
Is
is
low.
low.
Yes. Another point I'd really like to address here, coming to reports, whenever we get our blood work done, one of the most important marker is fasting insulin.
Right.
Right? We're constantly focusing on fasting glucose. But let me rephrase this again and bring you back where I mentioned that the body's main primary job is to keep you alive.
Right.
So that means keeping sure that your blood glucose is always in normal range. Right? And who does that? Insulin. But this constant eating will keep raising this insulin. This insulin is going to keep.
And that's
stringing
where
in your
insulin
bloodstream.
resistance.
Absolutely.
Kicks
Your
in.
cells have stopped listening to insulin. And that's what we don't want. So stop focusing on blood sugar markers, focus on fasting insulin, try to keep it under 5 so that you can get healthier. Your fat cells don't keep storing fat, and finally they don't convert to LDL, to triglycerides.
Mahek, you mentioned blood work.
Yes.
How often should one be doing blood work?
I would say once every 3 to 4 months should be
That
good.
should be the frequency?
That should be the frequency.
If I were to ask you 5 things, and I know there could be easily 30 things that we need to get right, but if just bite-sized information in the age that we are in, if there were 5 things that we must follow to lead a healthy life, what would those 5 things be?
Good night's sleep, wake up to good protein and fats. So try to include that as your first meal of the day. Most importantly also is exercise, because without exercise, your nutrition is going to be of no use, right? Your food is waiting outside your cells. But till you're not going to stress those cells with exercise, that food will not reach inside. So that's the third thing. Fourthly, I would say stay away from the demons, the sugars, the seed oils. Most importantly, seed oils. Alcohol, yes, I know everybody likes to party, everybody likes to have a good time, but abusing your body is not required in such a process. So stay away from all of these things. And fifth, most importantly, learn to say no. This is something we don't do. We don't know how to say no to things that are harmful to us.
What are your 3 non-negotiables that you practice every single day when you wake up?
3 non-negotiables. I need, of course, is my workout. That is the most important for me. That's how I start my day in the morning. First thing is my workout. My food is non-negotiable simply because my body can only speak to me by signs like sometimes through a headache or through constipation. There's no other way it's going to communicate to me. So what I put inside my body is going to eventually reflect on how I feel. And that's the communication you have with your body. And it's very important. I tell people, listen to your body and not to everybody.
How lovely.
Yeah. And the third most important thing for me is when I go back to sleep at night, I have to make sure I have helped or in any way advised something good to someone. Whether they use it, apply it, that's not the point. The point is I have put across the message. Now I can sleep.
Beautiful, beautiful. And this is also so powerful, isn't it?
It is. And that's why I have a tattoo which says heal the world.
Incredible. I can see there's a lot of
Yes.
tattoos going on there, and I'd love to know what it all says. If there was just one thing that you could tell every single person in the world, what would that one thing be?
That would be find your purpose. Find your purpose. You know, it's our duty to help people. It is our duty. We have not been gifted this life to live, come here, enjoy, and walk off. There's a purpose to it. And we need to find out what that purpose is.
Incredible.
What is it that you are leaving behind that they will remember you for?
Fantastic. And Mahek, this has been enthralling, engaging, and I have loved every single minute of this. And I can't thank you enough, because for you to have taken the time out so graciously to come and speak with me means a lot.
Thank you so much. It's actually an honor for me to, be on your frame, to be here to tell people what I went through. And I'm sure many are going through right now. But there's not enough courage sometimes, because of social norms, that we don't want to step out and speak our heart. But I want to say this today. If there's anything that any of your viewers or of my viewers or whoever is watching this podcast needs any kind of help on anything in life, I'm just a DM away.
And you are forever incredibly generous. Thank you, Mahek. And what better quote than to leave with the fact that the only thing to do with good advice is to pass it on. It is never any use to oneself, in the famous words of Oscar Wilde.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahek. It was lovely
God
having
bless
you.
you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for making me a part of this journey.
Thank you.